I'm sure so many of you recognize my guest. I'm so excited to talk to you, Nikki. Thank you so much. I mean, it was a random DM. I reached out to you. I shot my shot because you live in St. Louis, and I just thank you for your time.
Yeah, you got to shoot your shot. It's I really, as someone who's gotten ahead by shooting my own shot a lot, like you gotta reward it when it's being shot your way. Not all the time, because you can't do everything, but once in a while one gets through and you're like, I'm in the mood to say yes.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk to you a little bit about your story, and really my show is kind of about money and financial empowerment. And
it's
success.
crazy
So,
I said yes to this because I am. We could be talking about child abduction, and I would have more to say on it. Like I literally am so scared of money. This is like an extraterrestrial podcast or something. Like we're talking about like things I'm scared of. I feel unprepared to talk about it, but I feel like I do represent a big group of people who are terrified of money.
Well, you're inspiring to a lot of people because you've achieved the kind of financial success so many people dream of. And I've heard you talk on shows a little bit about money. But before we get to some of that, can you just share a little bit of how you got to be where you are? I mean, from growing up out here in St. Louis to becoming one of the most famous comedians, like how did you get there?
Well, I think it really has to do with I had a privileged upbringing. Like if we're talking about money, let's just talk about like I came from upper middle class, and I had supportive parents who, had instilled in me a level of dysfunction that made me gravitate towards making fun of life and saying really crazy things into a microphone, but also that really supported my career and made it possible for me to have it. So, but I also, I really attribute it to, I'm really into the Enneagram, and I'm an Enneagram 3, which is someone who doesn't find that they have value unless they are outstanding and not perfect, but outstanding and remarkable. And our biggest core fear, if you look into this Enneagram stuff, it's really fascinating, but our core fear is being a nobody. So for me, it wasn't about like, I want to be rich someday. I just really wanted to be famous, I think was like the goal early on. And I didn't know how. I was like, I'll be an actress. I wanted to be Jennifer Aniston. Whatever kind of attention she was getting for her hair, she's so cute. Everyone loved her. I just like 1996 Jennifer Aniston. That was like, okay, I'll be that. Who wouldn't want to be that, right?
Like Girl Next Door, funny. No one dislikes Jennifer Aniston.
Perfect. She's perfect, and she was back then. And so I was like, okay, I'll just do that. And so I didn't really know what it was going to be, but I just always knew I was going to be on TV, I guess I could say. But it was more about being famous. But what that is about is like I feel worthless unless I am achieving things in a field where my parents have a lot of stock in it, or like they think people are important. So it usually threes, if I'm talking about this thing that I've just brought up that's kind of random. But for me, we're drawn to be successful in industries that our parents think are pretty cool. And my parents like TV a lot. They like famous people, and as did I. So I was like, oh, I'll just do that. And I didn't really know how, and I wasn't really a good actress, and I wasn't really good at singing or anything. And then I got really depressed because I was like not going to achieve my life goal, because how else do you get famous but to sing or dance or act? And I didn't know that there wasn't podcasting. The radio wasn't like, that's not enough. Like I wanted my face. People need to know.
Influencers.
Yeah, there was nothing back at this is 2000.
Yeah.
And so I fell into a depression. I think that's what kind of caused it, a kind of life crisis. And I was in high school at this time, so I was already putting an immense amount of pressure on myself to have the Jennifer Aniston trajectory. Like she was on a sitcom by 25. Like that was staring me down the barrel when I was 17. Like even though it seems so far off, I kind of knew, wait, I should at least be like acting in regional productions of
You
Nutcracker.
should definitely be at a Barbizon or something.
Yes, I should have been scouted by a modeling agency, all these things that were not happening. So I got an eating disorder, and that is only part of my story that I'm telling you, because I was pretty much wanted to die. Anorexia for me was kind of like a form of suicide that was just slow. And I didn't know it at the time, but that kind of really was what it was. Like, if I can't be famous, if I can't achieve my goals, I'm going to be a failure, and I don't want to be around. Like, what am I going to do? Teach? Like, I was like, I owe it. Wow. I know this is dramatic, but truly to me, the idea of someone being like, but you don't need to be an actress, you can just teach. I would be like, oh yeah. I'd say, yeah. And then I go, well, I guess I have to kill myself someday. Like, I literally had a side thought of oh, that's going to be rough. I don't want to do that, but I have to, because I will be that's a nobody to me. Now I don't look at school teachers as nobodies. This is an adolescent mind that did not realize what you know, happy, how you get happy, which is not pursuing fame. But At the time, it was just like, okay, if I can't be famous, I don't want to live. But then because of my eating disorder, I looked really skinny and like couldn't make friends at college because I looked so crazy looking and people were very worried about me and I looked sick and I just looked, you wouldn't want to get close to me because you're just like, she looks diseased. Like I was just not, so
Wow.
I knew that because people would whisper and make fun of me and talk to people about me and I could just sense there was like we've all seen a person that their hair is falling out, they're so skinny. Like I was like walking death, really bad. But I just turned up my personality up really high because I was freshman year and I just needed to make friends. And so if I was funny enough or like interesting enough, then they wouldn't notice how I looked. And it worked. Like I got friends and those friends even to this day are like, oh my God, the second you became so funny, like we forgot how scary you looked because initially we all noticed that and we were all like, what the fuck's wrong with that girl? But then people would come up to my friends and be like, we're worried about Nikki. And they'd be like, why? Because they were like, I literally stopped seeing it. And I was like, it worked. So when I got that personality turned up, that's the first time in my life I heard, you should be a comedian. And when you hear that enough and you're kind of directionless and you're dying of an eating disorder, you're kind of like, all right, well, what's this? And I Googled it and saw female comics and was really like inspired by it and felt like, well, I could do this. Like I really love comedy. I was obsessed with comedy. I had didn't think that would be a career for me. I just really loved comedy. So then I started writing jokes and I got on stage finally and performed. And then there was that moment of like, oh, this is what I'm good at. This is my ticket to fame. And it wasn't hard to work at it. Acting was always like, I don't even like this, but this is the only thing I can do. Like, I don't really love theater people. I really don't love reading these lines that were written by an old white man. Like, I just was never that into it the way other people around me were. Like, actors.
Sure. Yeah.
And so it was kind of like faking it, but comedy was like, oh no, I love this. So it wasn't hard for me to work as hard as I needed to make it because you have to be totally delusional and you suck for a really long time because comedy is something that you usually discover in your late teens. That's like the earliest you discover it as a stand-up comedian because that's when you can go to bars and perform. So, singers and dancers and actors are doing it since they were 4 or 5. You start at 19. So it takes 10 years to get good at anything. So yeah, Beyonce was great at 14 because she'd been doing it since she was 4. She had 10 years. So we look at, well, that kid just came out that way. No, she didn't. Her whole childhood went into learning how to dance and sing. That's 10 years of work you didn't see. But I started my 10 years at 19. And so I wasn't good enough to really have the career that I wanted and I knew that it was going to take that long. So I always told my parents, will you financially support me until I said 27. I was like, I just have a feeling will you just give me till 27? I was 18 when I started. So I said 9 years. And then it's crazy. On my eve of my 27th birthday is when it was announced that I had my first TV show. And so it was like very ironic that it happened that way. I don't think I was like, I got to get this sold now, but it happened that way. I kind of predicted correctly.
Coin Stories is brought to you by BitDeer, where the power of Bitcoin mining is at your fingertips. As a publicly traded leader, BitDeer's global reach and scale means they're everywhere you need them to be, ensuring you're part of the thriving Bitcoin economy. BitDeer's not just mining, they are industry pioneers. And BitDeer stands alone as the only vertically integrated, technology-focused Bitcoin mining company. What does that mean? Well, they're not just deploying, but developing the latest tech to make Bitcoin mining more efficient and effective. With the industry's most experienced leadership team, innovation is in their DNA, and it shows, with a quarter of their workforce dedicated to research and development, pushing the boundaries of what's possible in Bitcoin mining. Now they're leveraging years of expertise in data center and cloud management into high-performance computing through a recently announced partnership with NVIDIA. Join BitDeer in reshaping the world of Bitcoin mining. Learn more at bitdeer.com and explore how they are pioneering the future today. Wait, that's weird how the universe works. I read a story once about Jim Carrey carrying around a check for like $1 million and it was crumpled up and then he got his role with Ace Ventura and got paid the $1 million. So you kind of manifest your destiny.
And that's what I was getting to at the beginning that I lost track of. I think I became a comedian because I would meet people along the way that are like, I'm going to be an actress someday or I'm going to, they say that, but and my friends would laugh at me because I was obsessed with Dave Matthews in high school. And I was like, I'm going to be famous and I'm going to meet him. And my friends were like, yeah, right. I'm like, 100% I will. You don't think I will? Like, it was a foregone conclusion for me. So when I read about manifesting now, it's always like you have to believe without even an iota of a doubt that it's going to happen. You have to have, that's how you manifest things. And it's hard to do. But I think I accidentally manifested this because when I'm trying to manifest things now, I'm like, oh my God, you have to be as delusional as you were in high school when you would tell your girlfriends, like, what do you mean you think I won't meet Dave Matthews? Of course I will.
Yeah.
Like, and they're like, why? Why would you be famous? What are you going to be good at? And I'm like, I don't know, but it's just, how can you not believe in me? So I think that I think there was a manifestation thing that had to do with this. There was maybe 5 minutes between 18-year-old me and 28-year-old me, or whenever I could say I made it in comedy, which were a lot of dark years. I mean, bad, slim years where you're like, who's going to notice this? Is this even good? And there was never more than 5 minutes of me being like, what do I do if I don't make it? Like, there was just never a question. Wow. And I think now I have that thought happen more of as you get older, you get more paranoid. You want to hold on to the things you have, so you think more about what could go wrong. But I wasn't really ever thinking about it then, and I think it really works to just not let those thoughts in.
Yeah, no, I totally feel you. It's really crazy to think about how your naivete, especially in your 20s, you just blaze forward, even if everyone around you is maybe telling you it can't happen. And with something like entertainment, right, that's the big fear. It's like 1 in a million. Well, someone has to be that one, right? And
yeah.
And to your point, don't have a plan B maybe, because if you put all your focus on plan A, then it can work out and it can be amazing.
It's true. But at the same time, like I could just say it happened because of all these things, but it could have just been luck. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's always the person that's luckiest that's like, you just got to manifest it. And I believed in myself, but it's like, maybe a lot of people do and it doesn't work out for them. And there would have been a plan B, and there could have been, and I could have, there's, now that I think about it, there's so many things I could go into that would be fulfilling that aren't like this, like, you didn't achieve your dreams that I hope to get out of comedy someday to pursue, Well,
it's crazy how much the industry has changed. I mean, now you're not just doing stand-up comedy, you have a podcast.
Podcasting is like, I don't know what comedians did before podcasting. Like, did we talk to each other? Did we have connections with we don't really know what comedians were doing before podcasting.
Well, can you talk a little bit about the grind of getting to where you are? I mean, I heard you talk on a show that you don't even know how much money you have, which means that you probably have a lot. That's an awesome place to be in.
I know, that is a nice thing to say.
But it must have been tough along the way, right? I mean, just early gigs that didn't pay you a lot, feeling like maybe you won't make it. But like, when was your big break?
I mean, I remember like adding up what I was going to make, and it was like $13,000 in like 4 months or something, because I got a college agent, and so I was getting paid like $1,000 a gig, and I had like 12 gigs or something, and they were like around some $1,200 gigs, and I added it up, and I remember telling my parents, like, I guess how much money I'm making in the next 4 months, and I was just like, 13,000, and it felt like, it's just like you're dealing in thousands now, not hundreds. So that was, I think, the shift for me financially to be on my own and not rely on my parents solely was getting a college agent and going and doing the college route, because colleges have so much money to spend on entertainment for their students that they pay crappy comedians. And not even crappy ones, great ones too. They'll pay great comedians hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, I've been paid more money by colleges for my comedy than theaters.
I never had cool comedians come to my college. That's wild.
You probably did, and you did it, like 3 people came, because they don't advertise it. They just have to spend the money though, and they'll get in trouble if they don't. So there's like money that is set aside for entertainment, and they pay so well. And so as a comedian starting out, you got to get a clean act, though, which I did not have. I never had. And so I got a college agent from a recommendation from a friend. She was like, she told them, take Nikki, because she was kind of not doing those gigs anymore. She was in the next pay grade. So she's like, okay, for your $1,000 schools, I have my friend Nikki. And I went to this conference. You go to these big conferences, and all the student organization committees like come to these things called NACAs. And then they have the comedians perform on different stages, and then they bid on you to come to your school. And so you can get, in one day, you can get like 100 shows, like over a year's worth of shows, and make so much money. And I went and I cussed, and so I only got like 7 shows. But I was happy with that. And then they kept coming after that. So that was the first time I was digging out of the financial hole that is working in comedy clubs. Like, the pay has not gone up. You, as a middle act, which is what you are generally until you make it, you get paid, like the clubs I was working, $500 for a weekend, and a weekend is Thursday through Sunday, 5 shows, Thursday, 2 Friday, 2 Saturday, 1 Sunday. And sometimes the club will put you up if they have like a comedy condo, but a lot of times you have to find someone to crash with. And then eventually, before the colleges, I made friends with headliners who would bring me on the road with them, and then that's a bump up from just being the local guy at a comedy club, because then you get the pay from the comedy club. Sometimes the headliner doubles it for you because they just know times are tough. Good ones do. And then they also pay for your hotel and your flight. And that's usually coming out of the headliner's pocket, because now that I'm a headliner, I know that that's what you do. And I knew where it was coming from before. Now, shitty headliners just bring comics out and don't pay them and go, oh, you should be happy that you get to perform. And that is still happening rampantly with comedians who make millions and millions of more dollars than I do. And I know who you are, and we talk about you. And I'll never confront you because I'm kind of a pussy, but I think you're a bad person if you don't pay your openers. It's not nice.
Crazy.
It happens all the time. And so, yeah, like, so that's, a good gig is opening for someone who's a generous, wealthy comedian, because then you're just their opener and you can make, $1,000 a show or whatever it is. Like it's, and then they fly you out. And so you can kind of save some money there. But then to make a lot of money in stand-up, you have to sell tickets and you have to be recognizable, which now means being a TikTok star, YouTube star. But TV is where I became a star on TV, and then and podcasting is get you a certain audience as well. But I think I'm most well known from like TV stuff. But my big break, there's so many that you could point to, but I started a podcast in 2010, and then that got me a TV show on MTV, which was canceled. And then you go back into like, all right, what am I going to do next? And then I created a TV show for Comedy Central. Then I did Comedy Central Roast. And that was the big moment for me. Comedy Central Roast is like the biggest platform for a comedian. I would say next to like the Correspondence Dinner or something. Like it's the Olympics of, I think, comedy in terms of how many people are watching it, what a big deal it is. And I invested a lot of my own money in making those roasts extraordinary. Like I didn't just, when you go to a show, they'll pay you to be on the show. And then they have writers on the show that will give you material if you need it. Someone like Martha Stewart's doing a roast. They have writers. But I knew it was just like my one chance. Eminem, Lose Yourself. Like listening to that song a lot. I'm getting paid X amount. I'd pay to do this. The exposure is insane. So I very wisely, and from studying other people who had done the roast that I'd written for, you got to hire a team of writers yourself out of pocket. And so I like lose money on roasts a lot of times because I just cast a wide net, because I'm great at writing roast jokes, and I will write a bunch of roast jokes, but I want other people's brains working on this. Like if I had a late night talk show, no one would be like, you didn't write all of your monologue. It's like, no, every show has a writer's room, but for some reason comedians get a bad rap for having writers. But I don't use them for my stand-up that much unless I'm like really finessing a set that I want to look like, I want to tell a story. So I bring in writers to help me shape it, just to think about, but and to punch it up. But for roast, it's not like a personal thing, so I don't care about not writing all of the jokes. And I end up, I choose them. I'm curating it. So it's like that to me was the smartest investment. Like whenever I start to like lament about all the money I'm spending on hair and makeup or like getting stylists, even though they would provide a stylist for the show, I'm like, well, I can't trust that, because if I don't like these pictures, then I'm not going to post about it. Then it will be worthless for me to have done this, because no one's watching this TV show, because no one watches TV anymore. So really the only reason I'm doing this TV show is to have
post the picture.
Visuals. Yeah. Or to go to this event. If there's not, I've been to events where I like get there and they're like, the red carpet's closed. And I go, well, I'm leaving because there's no point I needed a picture to show that I went here. And I don't really say that, but I'm like, you realize this is the event now. I mean, do you realize being a person online who's famous, it's just telling people you're doing things. It's not actually them watching it. My special is going to be clips, and people are going to go, wow, you're killing it. And I'll be like, I guess. You think I am, but did you watch the special? No, because no one watches anything. It's just the deadline announcement. Nikki Glazer in talks to do a show at Amazon. There's a show that I've been working on that got announced that I'm like being paid. It's like Amazon is paying us to write a pilot and potentially make a show. And that announcement's just a little blurb, and it's something that's been brewing for years. And I thought nothing of it because it's like, it's just one of the plates I have spinning that. Yeah. But just putting that out there, like copying a Deadline article and putting on my Instagram, the amount of people being like, oh my God, your Amazon show. I'm like, you didn't read the fine print. It's not a show yet, but I'm glad you think it is. And you can believe it is, because you wouldn't know if I didn't do it anyway.
They'll
because
manifest
how
it
many
for you.
shows, how many shows exist? I could tell you, like, oh my God, don't you love Downward? And you'd be like, I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard good things. Like, it's not a show. But like, I can just make up that like one time on it's just lying. That's what I don't like about it, because I don't like lying. And so I wasn't lying, but it's just people are so image obsessed now. Like, my career is really about, I've started now when I walk out on stage, I'm filming the audience to like show, look how many people are here. I hate doing that. I don't want to brag about how I'm killing it. I think it's really not a good look. It's really disgusts me to even do that. But I have to do it so that if someone is, casting a new movie and they happen to look at my Instagram story, wow, look, this girl looks like she's killing it. Project like you're killing it all the time.
That's so wild.
And people buy it.
I need to improve in this area for sure, because I see
Lie.
people share a lot.
Yeah.
And I have never been that comfortable, but it's like the new.
I don't like it either.
It's the new path. You share like what you eat. You share your recipes. You share what
Share
you're wearing.
that you're
You share the
killing it.
bad stuff. I mean, people overshare some things.
Oh, the
where I'm
bad
like,
stuff. Yeah, I have to. That's where I like to lean into it. Like, if I ever post a picture where I look super hot, I'm like, thank you for the spray tan, the fake eyelashes, the fake hair. Like, I have to let people know this is a fake image. Think about the 802 images that I did not select that took to get this image. Like, I want to dispel the lie. But the people that I see crush it in life are people who, I'm trying not to lie. I'm just trying to be excited about the things that I do have and be grateful and show the truth, because the audience was packed. I was showing the truth.
Yeah.
But when comedians write like, Denver, 2 shows, sold out. I'm like, who's this for? Because if it's sold out, there's no tickets available. You don't need to let us know. This is literally just a brag. And that's what it is. It's like, you got to brag about the stuff you're doing, and I'm not good about that. And it's not because I'm such a good person and I don't want to brag. It's like, it just, I don't know what it is. It makes me uncomfortable, but it is a part that I'm like, okay, I have to just start blindly bragging a little bit, because my life is cool and there are good things about it. And I don't need to downplay everything. That, whenever someone's like, oh my God, congrats on your TV show, I used to go, it's going to be canceled someday, because all shows get canceled. And people are like, Jesus Christ, okay.
Yeah, like you would reverse it. You wouldn't accept the compliment.
I just want to be able to prepare for the worst. Like, I don't want to be delusional. And I think that's, that's a part of what I like about the comedy I do. It's like very just like harsh and looking at things the way they are. And so it's part of my mind that I can't turn off. But yeah, it's a lot of my wealth and fame is very much a product, I would say, moving forward, of like this shift of me trying to like show people where I'm at a little bit more, instead of just like letting those sold out shows go unnoticed. Okay, why don't I tell people they were sold out? What's that going to do? And what it does is people I haven't seen in months go, you're killing it. And I will have just been crying because I'm depressed about, like, it's so funny because I'll go, why do you think I'm killing it? And they'll be like, well, I saw you're on stage this weekend. I'm like, yeah, it looks like I'm killing it. When I'm like, hi, everyone. And I'm like, Santa Fe or whatever. I'm like greeting the crowd and the music's playing and I'm like, full hair and makeup. But it makes me kind of sad that someone might compare themselves to me in that way. I think that's where I don't want to brag, because I know I compare myself to people. And I would hate if me killing it would make someone go like, I'm not as good as Nikki Glazer, and I assure you are. Like,
no, I feel you. I feel you so much. I mean, people make so many assumptions and you put out your best self, but it's not always reflective of how you actually feel or how you're actually doing. I mean, I do a Bitcoin show and people assume I'm like one of the earliest people who have 1 million Bitcoin. I wish I don't. Sorry.
God.
But I wanted to ask you about, as you started to make money, were you one of those people who thought, okay, I need to do a good job investing and saving for the future? How did you start to manage all of that?
I instantly got recommended a money manager guy. So it was like right when I got my MTV show and money started coming in like weekly, like $7,500 checks, like just money I was adding up, like, it was just money I'd never seen before. It just felt so exciting, which is really a horrible pay in TV when you shake it down. But at the time it was amazing. And time out. I think we get paid way too much in my field. I'm like disgusted by the amount of money I will get for talking to a microphone. I'm happy it all shook out this way. I don't think it's fair though. Like people go, no, you bring so much to so many. I'm like, it's just jokes. Like I feel like teachers should be paid a lot. I'm not trying to get on a pedestal here and be like a saint, but it feels ridiculous that celebrities should be paid what they're paid. But because when it started coming in, I did get a business manager that was recommended to me, and I trust him. So he is my favorite person. He's so supportive of my career. He came in 2013, made me feel so not embarrassed that I lose my credit card all the time, and I don't know how much money I have, and I don't understand what stocks are or bonds are, and I don't know what the a 401k is, and I don't know any of that stuff. And he wasn't there was no scoffing at me. I felt really ashamed of all those things, and he's just since held my hand through it and gotten me with an investment guy, and we have calls begrudgingly, a couple, few times a year, and talk about where things are at, and then I just write down some numbers. This is how much you made. This is how much you spent. This is how much we're putting away into savings. This is how much is going into this one. And now, now let's bring in Craig, and he's my investment guy. Then he gets on the call and he says, well, last year you did this well, and it was a rough year, and this year we weren't very risky, and this year do you want to be a little bit more risky? And I'm like, okay, how about we be risky with half of it? I'm ready to be a little bit let's dial up 10% riskiness. And he's like, okay. So he goes off and does that kind of thing. But when it comes to knowing what these things are, I don't know, and I just trust them to keep an eye on it, and that nothing they're doing will make me go homeless.
But it's mostly stocks that they're investing in on your behalf.
Yes.
And you totally trust them.
Yeah.
So have they recommended Bitcoin to you?
I think we talked about it a while ago, and NFTs and we haven't really gotten into it, but I don't think they're adverse to it. I'm sure they'd be open to it if I said, yes, this is what I want to do.
So fascinating. I mean, I didn't know. Sometimes I talk to people who hate Bitcoin, some don't have a lot of opinions on it. And I was curious if you had any, or if you have some,
it's a thing that we used to make fun of. I host F-Boy Island, and we just, everything, we make fun of these F-boys for talking about Bitcoin. They would come to the, elimination rounds, and they'd look really sad, and I'm like, is Bitcoin go down? We would always just joke about is Dogecoin at an all-time low? We just make fun of their mood will be based on what Bitcoin was doing that day. So I associate it with a dumb dude bro thing, I have to say. It seems that's what but I do know that there are many, many smart people that I've met that are into it. And so I roll my eyes at it a little bit, but I would never stand by that.
Well, here's something that you will relate to and agree with, and maybe we'll tie it back to Bitcoin. Everything has gotten so ridiculously expensive to the point that you could have a well-paying job and still feel like you're just treading water.
Yeah, I don't know how people do it.
I want to get your thoughts on that because you've talked about it a little bit on your show.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about the current situation with regards to just affording life, and why do you think it is?
Scared, and I'm terrified.
Even someone who has money is saying this.
I'm not. I'm scared for other people.
Okay.
I'm going to be okay, but the people in my life who are just trying to survive, they'll be okay. I feel that I need to earn in order to support the people in my life who don't have my income. I feel like I need to make more money just in terms of being able to tip generously. I believe that rich people need to share the wealth, and we need to pay tax. I believe in high taxes. I don't give a fuck. I make a lot of money. I will pay more taxes. I don't understand these people who just want to hoard everything. You have to pay more because you're lucky that you got into a profession that makes you more money. You're not more special than poor people. You just got lucky. And so you have to pay the lucky tax, which is a higher tax. And I believe in tipping a lot. I believe in being very generous with your money, in loaning money out in a way that you're not going to see it again responsibly. But I believe in not hoarding money, and I don't like greed, and sometimes it flares up for me, and I just feel like I'm spending too much, and then I'm like, I'll get a grande instead of a venti. I'll start making those adjustments that are insane, or I'll take an Uber Comfort or instead of Uber Black or whatever it is, but I won't even know what I'm doing. It's just an anxious reaction. But I'm really scared for people, and when I go out to eat and my waitress is a bitch, I go, that's fine. I would be too. What the fuck how are you supposed to get by with this job? And so I don't mind when people are bad at their jobs that aren't paying well. And my dad will complain and be like, well, he's not even asking us if we want bread with that. I'm like, he's making $8.50 an hour plus tips or whatever it is now, and you're going to tip shitty, because I know, not shitty, but like you're going to tip under 20% because you're mad that he didn't bring the bread. And so why would he bring the bread? So he can get that little extra fuck you, you know, like I would hate you if I were him. And it's no wonder customer service suffers. No one's making any money, and no one has the energy to be fucking plucky and kind to you at the front desk of the DoubleTree. I'm sorry. You don't get that anymore. And I don't know what happened. I don't understand it enough to know what happened, but it's so disheartening.
Do you think about it ever, though? I mean, the fact that people used to have the same jobs, but they used to afford a house. I mean, literally one income could afford a really nice house in like the 1970s.
You see the like infographics about it all the time. I see it where it's like you could be a carpenter and support like a family of 4, and your kids could go to college, and you could have 2 cars or what. Like, so I lived in that world.
What do you think happened? It's time for a quick break to hear these messages from my partners who make this podcast possible. First up, Bitcoin 2024, the world's largest Bitcoin conference, is coming to Nashville this July. Join us for 3 amazing days of keynotes, panels, networking events, workshops, concerts, and my 3rd annual Women of Bitcoin brunch. The Bitcoin conference is actually where I launched my podcast almost 3 years ago. You never know what can happen or who you can meet here. Head to b.tc/conference and use the code HODL, HODL, for 10% off. Next up, CoinKite. CoinKite makes everything you need to safely self-custody your Bitcoin, including the Cold Card wallet, the cold storage device I use for safekeeping my Bitcoin. You can verify the source code, it's ultra secure, and it's easy to use even if you're a beginner. Head to their site in my show notes and get a 5% discount with promo code CoinStories. And finally, the why of Bitcoin is easy to grasp, but the how can be so confusing. The Bitcoin Way is your professional Bitcoin IT and security team that offers personalized one-on-one support to guide you through cold storage, setting up a node, inheritance planning, privacy best practices, and more. Don't take my word for it. Take 82-year-old customer Bill's.
Give the Bitcoin Way a try. You will be well on your way to owning and protecting the greatest money ever discovered.
Set up your free 30-minute consultation with the Bitcoin Way today. All right, back to the show. What do you think happened?
Greed. Rich fucking people wanting to be more rich. It's all about greed. It's about wanting to be the best. It's wanting to be, now I want to be a billionaire. Oh, I have $1 million. Now I want $2 million. Oh, now I want to get $10 million. Oh, now I have 10. Now I want 20. Now I want 50. Now I want 100. Well, now it's on the way to $1 billion. If you reach $100 million, I see $1 billion. Why? Why do you need $1 billion? Who needs $1 billion? No, and I'm not the first person to say this. I don't have that much, like in the scheme of things, when I talk to my friends who are really rich, I have no money. Like it's, compared to them, it's crazy. I have a friend who is a literal billionaire, and I don't even want that life, because you could do anything you want. And when you can, mark my words, when you have the freedom to do anything you want, it's scary, because you can't have an excuse anymore for why you're not achieving your dreams, because you could finance them. You could do anything you want. Yeah. And so you realize like, oh, I think I might be in my own way. But I just don't. I think it's just the top wanting to be greedy and not wanting to share, and thinking that they are somehow, God shined a light on them. God likes them more than poor people. And I am rich because I worked hard. Okay, great. And that person that's not rich didn't work as hard as me. Okay, well, let's take that apart. So are you responsible for being able to work hard? Or is that just like you were born with parents that instilled this ethic in you? Was that maybe it? Okay, well, okay, then it's your parents' fault, not really yours. You learned it from them. Okay, so it's not you. But you did work hard, but it's also you have a brain that can work hard. You're smart enough to learn how to work. You're smarter than poor people. But did you choose your brain? No, you just got lucky. So stop feeling like you are a chosen one because you're so smart and you pulled yourself up by your bootstraps. You started out poor, but you made it work. Oh, you were a drug addict, but you climbed your way out of it. Why can't these drug addicts do it? Well, because you were special. You have a different brain than that drug addict. If you were that drug addict, you'd be that guy on the street. There's nothing different than us from poor people, rich people from poor people. There's no difference except I got lucky. Like, I don't think I'm better than anyone else. And when I do start to, because sometimes it creeps in, because it can. We live in a capitalist society that you have to perpetuate it, you have to feel better than other people. And you start to feel it. And I really have to stop that, because I just am so lucky that I am talented at something that gets paid a ridiculous amount of money. If I was talented at being If I was an electrician, I would not be as rich, and I would never have the ability to be that rich, and no matter how good I was at it. And so I just got lucky that this is the thing I'm good at, that people pay a lot. But I don't think I want to. So that's why I'm very generous with my family and friends with my money, and they don't understand it. But I'm like, I said this yesterday to my girlfriends, because I just bought my parents a gym membership, and my parents are very tight with money, even though they have money. It's a very strange thing that I think a lot of people come from, where you grew up feeling poor, even though you found out later on we weren't poor at all. They inherited some kind of, the Great Depression stuff from their grandparents, so they're, need to hoard. But my parents, I got my mom a gym membership and a personal trainer 3 times a week, because I'm of her blood, and I know the only way I work out is if someone's watching me and making sure I do a good form. And I know my mom, she's like, I can just go once and learn, I'll do it on my own. I'm like, you've never worked out in your life. No one does that. Maybe a couple people can, but most people need, so I go, you're getting a trainer 3 times a week. You, Nikki, you don't know how much that costs. And I go, I don't even want to know. I don't care, because it's not $10,000 a week. I know it's not that, so I can afford it. So let's just do it. And she goes, I would never do this for myself. And I go, okay, but if you had my money, you probably would. And she goes, no, I probably wouldn't. And I'm like, well, that's stupid, because you should invest in self-care. And then I said, but you would do it for me. Like if it meant, because my mom working out means longevity at her age. She's in her, she's 65. So if she doesn't have muscle mass soon, she could fall and break a hip, and then she's dead way sooner than she would be if she had stability. So I'm just buying years of her life. And I said, I would pay millions to buy more years of your life. That's what this is. And I go, you do the same for me. And she was, I don't know that she would. Not I don't think she'd do the math in her head to figure out longevity would mean me building muscle mass. I don't think there are as many. I know there aren't, because I know how people vote that have a lot of money. And I know that they vote that way because they have money. And it disgusts me, because it's just, you don't need that much money. And you have way more money than you need. And you're terrified of losing it, because you think they're going to take it from you, or you're somehow special and you achieved it. And I don't subscribe to that. And so I'm glad that I'm the one in the family who got rich, because otherwise they wouldn't help me out. I don't know that they would, but I predict they wouldn't.
I have heard you talk about how you're generous with your friends and family. I think that's beautiful. I think there definitely should be more generous people within the wealthy class, but I have so many things going through my head based on what you said, because
tell me.
I was also, I did not grow up with a lot. My family's first generation. I was born in Poland. We came here. And it was funny, because my family moved to a suburb that was very similar to the suburbs that are out here, the one that you probably grew up in.
Yeah.
Really nice houses, maybe not mansions, but really nice houses. And we had nothing. My parents slept on the sofa bed in this tiny apartment that we had, and then I finally saw them sort of make it and achieve this modest version of the American dream. We got this little townhouse outside of Chicago, and I went to high school, and then I went off to college, and boom, great financial crisis hits. They lose their home, and they go bankrupt.
Oh my God!
And I was like, this system is so unfair. And I had a lot of the same gut reactions as you, like, F those greedy people. Everyone on top is just super greedy, and it's the corporations and I just funneled all of this anger toward this class of people that I was like, these are the people to blame, the rich are to blame. Mm-hmm. And then it actually wasn't until I learned about Bitcoin that I was like, oh my God, I didn't even know what money is. I didn't know how money is created. I didn't know how money was issued. I didn't know what money printing was. I assumed printing money was literally the physical printing of dollars. And then when I learned about it, and we could go down 5 rabbit holes, I was like, holy moly. They literally print money out of thin air. They just add it to the accounts of banks. They lower interest rates, which I was like, what is this about? Why does it matter in my life? And then you see the effects of basically they call it the Cantillon effect, where the people closest to the money printer, they just benefit the most. And everyone else that's downstream, the working class, they get progressively more disenfranchised and have it rougher and rougher. And as the years go on, you're basically working harder and harder for money that's worth less, because they keep printing. And if you turn a society that has $1 million to a society that has $10 million, but the money pools with very few people, you can't afford anything. You can't afford the same house. You can't afford the healthcare, the education. And it's just, now I look at the world and I'm like, oh my God, something needs to fix this. And for me, I racked my brain and I got political. I was like, it's politics, it's this. And then I was like, no, it's the money. The money's broken. But obviously, I feel like side conversation, maybe
But
we'll have
Bitcoin
it.
is going to solve it.
Yeah, I really think that Bitcoin is our best option to solve this. I really do, because it removes the power to be able to print money from a group of people that aren't even elected. The central bank is who prints the money,
Yeah.
and we don't elect them. So the fact that there is a guy, like today was a Federal Reserve meeting, and they decided whether they're going to cut interest rates or are they going to hike them again in the future. I mean, literally, we're waiting for one man to decide the cost of borrowing money. That's insane to me. Bitcoin is money by the people for the people. No one has a special advantage. There's no one in control. It's completely decentralized. It's just like the internet. There's no headquarters. There's no one in power that can manipulate it. And
Yeah,
our
that
system
sounds
is
good.
so rotten, I think, at its core, and corrupt, because the incentives make it so that anyone who is close to the money benefits, and all their friends benefit, you know, and all their companies benefit, and then everyone else kind of suffers. And this literally is why you and I before this were talking about how the quality of everything is getting worse and worse and worse.
Everything's
like
just so poorly made.
The food is different. The construction of buildings. I mean, I've been looking at houses. I walk into places. I'm like, this will fall apart in 2 years for
Yes.
sure. There are buildings in Europe that were built, by the way, under the gold standard 1,000 years ago that are still standing. And it's like, we need something to fix this, because I agree with you in the sense that, like, it's not fair that very few people. Well, here's the thing. Maybe it's not that I want to say unfair. It would be fair if it was like sports, where the rules were fair, and then the people who were just amazing at what they do, like you, excelled to the top and made a certain amount of money, but everyone else was not at a disadvantage because the rules were totally rigged.
Right.
And I think our rules are totally rigged. It's like
makes
watching
sense.
a sports game where you have quarterbacks and like based on a system that is it's like a fake game.
The worst thing you can do is trying to explain something is related to football for me, because I don't understand that. I'm just kidding.
That's really funny because I don't understand football.
No, but I know what you're saying. I was just making a joke, but that I grasp what you're saying. That interests me. That it's something that takes out anyone who's in control, because that's where everything goes wrong when there's a leader.
Yes.
Unfortunately. Like,
yeah, and he could be on your team or not, but I mean, look at this. We've elected red and blue for the last how many decades, and the average person's standard of living has just decreased.
and it's just like, you think about when I'm stressed about money and I have money, I'm in like a bad mood. I just like, there's an underlying illness going on in my heart. And like, people who have to show up for their kids and show up for their jobs, show up for themselves, their husband, and they also are worried about money. Like my friends who are worried about money, they can't even be present. You can't even be friends with them because they are so stressed out always. And they don't want to hear about your life where you have money. That's not fun for them. So there's a divide there that goes up where you can't connect with them. And I'm not saying like, come on, just get over it. I'm like, no, they should be distracted by this. They are one, just a little small car collision, or like I just had my I like don't own anything. I don't own a home. I bought my mom a car, and then I just took her car, and it's like this old car that I keep pouring money into. And yesterday it was just making a scraping sound. I literally thought they were gonna be like, oh, this panel, we just have to put it up and that's fine, and we won't charge you. But it was $1,289, and I was just like, thank God I can afford this. But what would this do to my sister, to anyone? This is like that's a huge expense.
Yeah.
So you would just drive around with a car that sounds like the devil's abortion. I mean, my car was like, roar, everywhere I went. It was so embarrassing. And now I understand why people drive around with shit like that.
Yeah.
Because you you either eat that month or for the next 2 months or whatever that would be. It's just, it's so upsetting to me. And like, it makes me have a lot more empathy for people who are just dicks all the time. Like, see people getting mad in line at Starbucks, and you shouldn't really be buying Starbucks if you can't afford things, but that's neither here nor there. Everyone deserves a treat. But like, you see people being rude or like road rage, and I just go, this isn't about that person cutting them off. This is about this person feeling like they'll never make it out of this.
Yeah.
And they're always going to feel like there's just someone breathing down their back and they're going to end up homeless. I mean, homelessness is like, it's just such a worse. You have to ignore it because it's so heartbreaking. That's the problem, is like we just step over these people. Well, you wouldn't get to work if you felt empathy for every sad thing you see when you're walking to work in, let's say, New York or LA, where the homelessness is really bad, Seattle, a lot of cities. But you have to turn that off to survive for yourself. So it makes you seem like a callous, cruel person, but you simply can't. If you just everywhere you go, oh my God, look at you. Are you okay? Like, you couldn't do it. But they're not so different than you and I. They just had less people to ask for. Like, they ran out of people that loan them money. Like, I always think about when people ask me for money, I'm always happy. I don't do it to strangers. Please do not Venmo me. I get a lot of Venmo requests being like, it's really hard times, Nikki, and I heard you on this thing. I'm sorry. I'd be broke if I answered all those. But when it's someone in my life who I really love who's going through a hard time, I never if I can afford it, of course I help them, because I would want them to do the same for me. And I think that we just need to all kind of golden rule it and be like, what if that were me?
Yeah.
And within reason, to be responsible. But I think being charitable and giving and being generous and not thinking that the money is yours. It's like all of ours. It's just like you're hanging on to it for a little bit. Like, that's how I kind of think about it. And maybe that's probably, I'm sure a lot of my thinking is not right. But it's just, that's where I'm at, I think.
No, and I get what you're saying. I mean, it's crazy what's happened, and when you're in a position where you can help people, it does feel good to help, because you know how hard it is, especially for some people. No matter how hard they work, it's like something can happen, an emergency. When I was a reporter, we did stories on how people can't afford an average like $400 emergency. They're just totally broke, credit cards maxed out. And I agree with you. When I see someone who's really just in a horrible mood, it's sad and it sucks, but I'm like, I get it, because you have a job that you probably need three of them in order to make your rent.
I don't understand how people work at restaurants anymore. Like, how we even have waitresses. Like, I just go, where do they live? Is this can't be their only job? Like, it just makes you think, like, how do people get by with this? I just don't get it. And so I know that the tipping culture, like, is part of the problem, but it's like, do I opt out of that? I feel like I have to pick it up I was a waitress for years and saw how people tip. And I feel like even now it's even worse because people are trying to, like, rebel against it. So I feel like I have to tip more to cover up. I don't know. It's just, I will say it does make me feel good to give money to people. And it's probably a little like when people go, no, I don't want you to do this or whatever. I go, I get something out of it too. Like, don't think this is all just like, I get to be like, what a good person you are. Like,
no, it feels really good to give.
It does. And when it's an amount, like when my mom goes, you don't need it. Don't. I'll give my mom like, hey, will you give the bellhop $20 or whatever? And she goes, just give him 10. Give me that 10. And I go, give him 20. Because the difference between 10 and 20, I was in a place in my life for most of my life where the difference between 10 and 20 is like a big fucking smile on my face.
Yeah. But it is crazy to think, because you and I were probably in Los Angeles at the same time, and I was on a different career track, but I somehow afforded life in LA, and on the same amount of like minimum wage. I mean, my first job out of college paid, I think it was like $10 an hour. I was working at CAA before I pivoted into news. And I was spending more than 50% on rent. But now I'm like, now with how much rents have gone up and the wages have not gone up as much as rent has. So it's
Tarzana.
like you have to have 5 roommates.
With 5 roommates, yeah.
It's crazy.
It's I don't know how people do it, and it's really hard for me to give advice to young comedians about how to do it, because the pay hasn't gone up in the comedy clubs. Still the same. It's the same from the 80s. $100 a show for a middle act.
It has not changed.
It's not changed at all.
That's insane.
And the headliners have changed because the ticket prices have gone up, and you make a percentage of that. But like for the feature act, which is the middle act, and then the MCs, that's just $50 a show for an MC, $100 for a feature act, and those have not gone up. And it's hard for me to give advice to people because it's just, I go, do you have parents that are willing to support you? Do you have, like, I don't know, like, what's your OnlyFans? Are you willing to start, like, let's talk about it.
I mean, that's a sign of the times, right? That people would rather go put photos of themselves online rather than pursue something. Like, we probably need more, neuroscientists and brain surgeons.
They want to do
make,
both.
You can make literally 5 times more just putting your feet pictures on.
Yeah. And like, I don't begrudge teachers doing OnlyFans. All these teachers are getting canned because they have an OnlyFans. It's like, but they can't afford to live without having the OnlyFans. It wasn't just because they love showing people their vagina and they're just unstoppable whores are going to try to have sex with your kids. No, they were just trying to get by so they could continue teaching your kids, which is their passion.
But isn't it
Don't
sad that like
punish them?
Don't you think if they had the choice, a lot of people probably wouldn't choose to do that?
Yes. That's I mean, I watch adult content and I often think to myself, I don't think this was this girl's dream.
Right.
I don't think any girl in 6th grade, 5th grade, you ask them what they want to be, it's this. And so I do think that, yeah, sex work comes out of, not all the time, because I don't want to, and I have, there's no shame in sex work at all. I actually really admire women that do sex work. I just don't think most of it comes at a place of just like, what else am I going to do? And men are so horny and stupid that they spend an insane amount of money on it. And so you can be very rich in it, because men, when they get horny, they don't think properly and their brain doesn't work very well, and they will give you lots of money. So I think it's actually if you are a woman who has no problem sexually objectifying herself in that way, and I totally mean that with no judgment, I always am like, do OnlyFans. Like for me, I couldn't do it because I don't like to be sexualized. I feel very uncomfortable by it, but it would be hard for me if I did it. I have some friends that are just like, oh yeah, that guy's checking me out. And like, they just like lean into it, cleavage out all the time. They kind of like it. I'm like, yes, do an OnlyFans. Like this, you're leaving money on the table. Like if that doesn't bother you, to me, I wouldn't be able to do it. But I can talk about my vagina into a microphone, and a lot of people couldn't do that. So to each their own.
Could you do an OnlyFans where you're totally clothed and just talking about Bitcoin?
Yeah, I mean, if you had your
Is there an audience for
sandals
that
on and they were zoomed in on your feet the whole time, that's where I go. I could do the feet thing. Like, I don't care if my feet are sexualized, because I don't see any sexualization
I don't get that fetish
in
at
it.
all. That is weird.
But people do like it. So I do think that if I was a struggling comedian, I would maybe do an anonymous foot OnlyFans. I wouldn't ever be like, these are Nikki Glazer's feet, and I would never tell anyone I was doing it. But if it was really hard up, those foot people got money, and that you don't have to put your face on it. It's just your foot. And all you do is just like kind of rub your feet together and stuff. And they might ask you to do some weird stuff, which at your own, whatever you want to do. But that's probably the closest I could ever get to entering into that realm.
Well, luckily you don't need to. One thing that I just thought of that you mentioned earlier is this persona that you think the Bitcoin people have, because one thing that I've noticed in this space is it is a lot of dudes. It's a lot of men. I've tried to bring a lady's flair to it.
Yeah, you're making it more palatable for me.
I think more girls should be in the space, but why do you think that it's so dominated by men? And it's not just Bitcoin and crypto, but like finance in general, investing, that whole world. It's like mostly a boys' club.
Because we weren't able to get credit cards until 1973 or something. Like women didn't have rights until later, and we just belonged in the kitchen, and we raised children, and the husband pays the bills, and we look over his shoulder and say, do you want more coffee or what? Like we were always just like, that's just how we watched generations of women. So we're slow to it. Just as women are slow to talking about sex, like female comics always get talked about, like dudes like the Bitcoin bros will roll their eyes about women talking about sex because another female comic talking about sex. Oh, really? So original. And it's like, well, it kind of is, because we didn't really no one was talking about sex even 20 years ago. Women weren't talking very like into a microphone about their sex lives. It was all hidden. It was all shameful. And so it takes a little while for these things to catch on. But I think that we're obviously capable of it. It's just society. And it's maybe our brains are a little bit more, they're more detail oriented. We're more emotional, and numbers aren't emotional. And that's a fact.
That's interesting. But it is crazy because people are more and more open about, say, their personal or intimate lives. But talking about money is kind of dirty and like taboo.
It totally
which is weird.
And I love talking about it, maybe because I have it, so I don't mind being like, guess what I'm making for this thing, and like telling people about it. And it seems like a brag, but I'm just like, isn't this exciting? Like, I like to, there are certain people I can tell things to that doesn't feel like a brag. And it's my parents, because they'll be like, oh, that's so much. And they're so excited, and my boyfriend and stuff. But it is something that I have to like keep secret. And I'm sometimes like really proud of myself for like, look how much money these people are giving me to do this. Like, it's sometimes really exciting, but yeah, you can't. I love when comedians talk honestly about what they make, and I'm lucky that I know I can sense when someone wants to tell me what they're making on something, but they know it's like not proper etiquette. So I'll just go, you can tell me. Come on, I'm actually interested. And then they can't wait to tell me.
What's the craziest you've heard, or what's the craziest amount you've made on one thing, one project?
I mean, the most I've made, like I've made like $1 million on not
In
at like
one-
a one, no, not on one show, like on a show. Like I'll do like
Wow.
a season of a show, and that's not that much. But
you
for
could
me,
buy
that was
a lot of Bitcoin with that.
You really could. But I will say that 20% is instantly gone to my managers and agents, and then
yeah.
another 10% to my lawyer. So 30% is out the window.
Yeah.
Or no, sorry, it's 25%. 5% to my lawyer is out the window right away. But I would say like for like a gig, you know, I've been paid by like colleges and like corporate events, like 125 for one show.
Like a check, a deposit that's that much. That's amazing.
Just one check that you get for flying to a city and
crazy.
performing one night of
Some
comedy.
people don't make that in a year. Isn't that
It's
crazy?
it's crazy. And yeah, that's been the most for me, but it's going to go up. Like I know what my friends make for gigs, and it's like that you can make. I mean, Dave Chappelle made. I don't think people know this. I think he made $60 million from Netflix for 4 specials.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, Matt Rife just did a special for Netflix, and I think it was $20 million he made on that. Like, and these aren't
That's
numbers that are
wild.
like, these are numbers within the industry that are talked about, but I think it was around that. And so my little $1 million for a season of a show that took me, 6 weeks to shoot is nothing compared to one night only, $1 million. Oh, and like, yeah, I think that's that, but I don't really need $60 million. It'd be nice, but like $1 million is like, I'd be okay if it never went up. I'm okay. That's insane.
It's crazy.
It's a great, and I don't have kids.
Well,
And I don't have any overhead.
And you don't have property. I heard
I
you say
I
on
don't
that
have property.
Selling Sunset show that you don't own a house. And I
I
was
know,
so
so
surprised by that
embarrassing.
because I was like, you live in St. Louis, and St. Louis has arguably way more affordable homes
Yeah.
than somewhere like LA. But then you
Great
were
homes.
searching. Like, why don't you own a home? I mean, real estate has been one of the best investments.
Because I just don't want to run it. Like I don't want to worry about the pipes freezing, and I don't want to worry about a flooding in the basement, and I don't want to worry the
Yeah.
dishwasher's not working. And I know I could hire people to figure out those things because that's what everyone tells me. You wouldn't have to worry about that. Well, then I don't want to have to hire that guy. I don't want to have to go talk to that guy. I don't want to have to call Jim and have him go, well, I can maybe go at 3. And I go, okay, then I get my assistant to come over and let you in at 3. It's just more things. And I don't, if it means making $200,000 if I flip a house, let's say like best case scenario, $200,000 I make on a house I flip, like that would be fantastical.
Yeah.
That's not worth it to me.
Yeah.
When I'm already have millions, and I know that some other people would argue differently, but I just don't care about. That is not worth it to me to every day have to be like, oh, the lawn, and we got to get the pool guy out there, and then I have to, and I don't need all that space. I don't like a bunch of space either. I'm like good with like I wish I could have a bigger apartment. I just want because I've reached the maximum capacity in my apartment, and my boyfriend lives with me, and we're like, I think we need to get a house. And I'm like, no, why can't they just make bigger apartments? But they don't. Not in St. Louis.
Well, it's crazy. I mean, even here in St. Louis, we've been looking at houses, and they're a lot more expensive than I thought. And it is. I mean, you have to upkeep everything. So I totally get it. But at the same time, being a lifelong renter, I can't imagine.
But
doing
like,
that.
what? I really, there's just this disconnect for me for people who want to own homes and also people who want kids. Like, I kind of am just done trying to understand what's different than me because everyone seems to want homes and everyone seems to want kids. And I have never wanted it because it seems like I guess it comes down to it just seems like a lot of responsibility, and I don't want to be responsible for things.
Really?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. It just feels like work and calls and scheduling, and I really don't need that in my life. So I'd like to just keep living in an apartment. And I like apartments because I like an elevator, and I like having the gym like downstairs, and I like it feels like young to me. And it does suck because I can't play my music as loud as I want to, and but even in a house, I feel like that would be like disturbing to my neighbors. So I feel like unless I'm in like the country, but I will probably someday because I'm friends with Whitney Cummings, and I remember her saying like, when you own a house, and she talks like this, Nikki, owning a home, you will feel so grounded. Like there was a moment where she was like, it will ground you when you own a home. You will feel like a real woman. You'll feel like an adult. You feel like you arrived. And there was something when she said that I was like, oh yeah, I've never felt that.
So interesting.
So I know that that's waiting for me. I know that the second that I get in my house and it's all decorated and it's mine, I'll be like,
Yeah.
and there's things like that all the time that I don't want to do, and then I do it, and I go, I should have done this sooner. So I know that that's waiting for me, but it'll just be the right time. I can't force it, because there's been times where I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I'll go on Selling Sunset and look at homes, and then I'm like, I'm not ready. I freak out. And same with marriage, same with kids. I mean, the kid thing can't wait, really. I mean, I'm kind of under the gun, but it's funny because Whitney, when she had a kid, she was like, it'll just ground you in a way you've never felt. And I go, wait, I'm still back at the house. I still haven't been grounded in that way, Whitney. So I'm really afloat in my life. But yeah, I don't know what, because everyone I know loves owning things.
Yeah, I'm in that boat. Like, my dream is to have a house, and not just I'm kind of like you in the sense I don't want to settle. It feels weird settling, right? Just having a house just because you can afford some building, right?
Okay,
to call
yeah.
your own. I want to save up
for
hopefully,
the house.
like, my Bitcoin will help. I want to have the house that I dreamt of when I was little. You
Okay.
know? And it's not a mansion. It's not something crazy, but just something really, really nice with, like, the kitchen, the color I wanted, and, like, you know, a place for my dog, and, like, maybe a garden. I don't know. I dream
that's
about that.
really God. This is because my boyfriend is always asking me, like, let's talk about our future. Like, what are your goals? What do you dream of? And I'm like, I don't really dream that much. Like, it's a problem for me, and I think that is something that because I don't like to be disappointed. I think that's why I don't look at my money, because I like to imagine it's more than it is, maybe, or that I'm spending less than I am. I don't want to see the truth, and I think that if I don't set goals, then I won't ever be disappointed in myself. Or like if I was just, as you were saying that, I'm like, well, what would my dream house look like? And I just can't see anything. I don't even know what it is. And
well, you really have to live in the present with your schedule, though, too. I mean, I thought I travel a lot, but when you look at your kind of tour schedule, I mean, and I'd love to have you talk a little bit about that, because the tour, huge.
Yeah.
I mean, you have like show premieres and the tour and all of that. How do you manage all of that?
I have an assistant who is amazing, and I have a tour manager who is amazing. So that's how I manage all of it. But it is, I do a lot of managing it too. Yes, I leave every Friday, sometimes Thursdays, to do a show Friday. And then on Saturday, we travel to the next city and do a show Saturday night. And then I travel back on Sunday. And then Monday, by Sunday, I'm back in St. Louis. And then Monday through Thursday is kind of like my time to do this kind of stuff, or do my own podcast, or do Pilates, like be a normal person. But on the road, I'm an animal, and I don't have to work out if I don't want to, and I can eat however I want. It's kind of, I love it. I love hotels, and I love air travel. I love
air travel today.
I do.
With every Boeing falling apart.
I know. Not every. Not every. But I am aware of when I'm on an Air Max 8 or 7 to, like, be ready to send my goodbye text if I need to. I have it pulled up. No, I don't mind it. I think because my life is so hectic, and because I really don't like responsibility or people needing things from me, I feel like the sky is the only time where they can't get me.
Oh, okay.
I feel like I'm caving or something.
You can be disconnected without feeling guilty. Yeah.
And I can really sleep. I sleep really well on planes, better than anything. And I like living in this little bubble where everyone's like traveling. And I like traveling. And so I don't mind when people go, that wasn't your day off, you were traveling. I'm like, no, I couldn't go to Home Goods. And I don't want to go to Home Goods. Like, my friends, when they go, I have my day off finally, I'm like, they tell me what they're doing all day, and I go, that sounds exhausting. You got to take the kids to the zoo, then you go to Home Goods, and then you got to go to the grocery store, then you got a meal plan for the week, and then you got to prepare the overnight oats. And I'm like, that's not a day off. I don't want that. I'd rather work all day than do that shit.
Well, I love what you said on a show where you were like, I have to struggle in order to give myself a little bit of pleasure.
Yeah.
I kind of feel the same way. I feel like if you don't have struggle, then I feel kind of weird or guilty or restless, and I can't relax.
Yeah.
So I have to, and whether it's kind of even a workout, but work, like putting your energy to productive use, it feels so good. And then you can be like, okay, I can enjoy it.
There's no better feeling than being done with something hard.
Yeah.
I've looked into it recently, and it's how you build, like, I really am trying to work on my self-esteem, which I've always struggled with my whole life. And I've just read this thing about the way to build self-esteem is to do hard things and accomplishment. And that's the only way to really do it, because it's otherwise you'll be stuck with it your whole life, because it's a thing that comes in when you're like a baby and gets cemented in you. And so to break free of it, you have to do really daring things and push yourself. And I like that. I mean, no one's ever left the gym after a hard workout and been like, why did I do that?
Yeah, right.
My friend said that to me once. My friend Sarah Thomas, she was like, you've never gone to the gym and regretted it. And I'm like, whoa, that's the only thing in my life I can think I just didn't regret.
Yeah.
Everything else I think I'm like, why why did I do that? I could have done something else. But yeah, it's there's nothing better than just like falling into bed and knowing that your body's so tired, and so you like earned this sleep. Like my friend used to say, you're the only person I've ever heard who says, I'm not gonna nap, I didn't earn it. She goes, what do you mean you didn't earn it? Are you tired? I'm like, yeah, but I just didn't earn it.
Well, you've certainly earned all of your success. Like, it's so cool talking to you and just meeting you in person. You're just as like easygoing and fun. We'll start to wrap up. Just kind of curious, you know, I know you kind of mentioned that you don't feel like you have advice, but so many people look up to you, whether that's from the financial success point of view or the fame or just being who you are and sharing yourself really authentically. So what is your advice for people who know and follow you?
Well, if I was watching this and I was like, I'm trying to think of like what I would want. I think the best advice I can give is like meditate, like get your mind right. And if you want to achieve anything, manifestation, I think actually works. And I'm not a spiritual person. I was raised as an atheist. Like I have been like really conditioned to not believe in anything like you know, otherworldly happening. But I truly believe in the art of manifestation. And I think that this book called The Power of the Subconscious Mind is insanely good. And it actually has scientific based evidence that we're working with like the quantum realm when we manifest. Like I don't really understand it because I don't need to. But if you really get yourself in a way where you believe the thing in the future has happened, it will happen. But if you it's really hard to do. Yeah. So it's not easy. It's not just like talking in the mirror like, I do manifestation of like, I'm a good singer because I'm struggling to become a singer right now. And sometimes I really hate myself because I'm like, why can't you sound like her? And I just have to like, I've started now just being like, you're a good singer. You are a great singer when you're relaxed. Or like, I just start talking to myself and it freaking works. You know, like these things come through. And I would just say, just if something scares you, say yes. Yeah. That is just the best advice. And I know that you might be a huge pussy and go, I can't, Nikki. I swear to God, I'm the biggest. My first word as a child was dangerous. And I would just point out things that were dangerous. Like I didn't sleep with my parents. I slept on my parents' floor until 8th grade. Like I was scared of everything. I was scared of public speaking. I shook so badly. I would have to give presentations during recess where the kids wouldn't be there. And my parents would call the teacher and say she needs special time because she shakes so much. So if I can do it, you can do it. You just sign up for something you kind of want to do. And you sign up for it, and it's in a couple months, and so it's not tomorrow, and you don't have to freak out, and then you just figure out a way to get there, and then you do it. And if you completely fail, all you'll learn from it is that you'll still be alive at the end of it, and it's not that big of a deal to fail. But you gotta do some scary stuff for your own self-respect to be a happy person, and you will achieve things when you do it. But it's gonna be uncomfortable. And you're not unique in thinking it's difficult. People that have gone before you that have achieved things, they were as uncomfortable. Beyonce was as uncomfortable as you. Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock. When I look at Chris Rock, I'm like, oh, that guy's never bombed. Chappelle's never bombed. Yes, they have. You gotta bomb a lot to get good.
I agree. I think that's great advice. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I hope next time we talk a little bit more about Bitcoin.
Yeah, let's do that.
We'll
but
chat
I feel
more
like
offline.
You've piqued my curiosity, and I'm into it. I will invest.
Well, it's funny because I have listened to you on shows, and I was like, there are so many people like this too, but you in particular, I'm like, she is a Bitcoiner. She just doesn't know it yet.
That's how I feel about Swifties.
There you go. Oh,
I feel the same way. I go, if you don't like Taylor Swift, you just haven't given it a proper shot.
Well,
so I'm speaking your language, girl.
I'm going to leave this on a fun fact for you. Google searches for Bitcoin have just exceeded those for Taylor Swift.
Congratulations, Bitcoin.
Thank
Where's
you.
your album that I can listen to? That's amazing. That's so funny. I love that she is right there with it. The new form of currency and Taylor Swift, which is a form of currency in and of itself.
Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Coin Stories. If you're listening on the Fountain app, you can show your support and share your thoughts by sending a boost. Last month's top episode on Fountain was with Michael Saylor, and I had @JoeMartinMusic boost 1,000 sats to say, sounds like Saylor is describing Nostr when talking about identity. Is he purple-pilled yet? Well, if you're asking if he's on Nostr, yes, he is, @Saylor. I love reading and replying to your boosts. So download Fountain on iOS or Android today and make sure you subscribe to Coin Stories. This show is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Nothing should constitute as official investment advice, and you should always do your own research. My inbox is open if you want to share feedback or guest suggestions. Just reach out at Natalie@talkingbitcoin.com. I'll see you next time.